9 years animating passion projects, 5 years as a motion designer. But like you, I knew nothing when I started out. Except that Pixar movies are really cool. But today I'm sharing secrets that no one talks about. I'm sharing hard lessons, skills that really matter, and mindset shifts that are essential if you want to do animation. These are lessons that you're not going to discover unless you've been animating for years. So if you want to save yourself a ton of headache and a ton of time, this video is for you. Let's start with something no one warned me about when I started animating. And this is the expectation versus reality. When you start animating, you think that animation is a creative art. You couldn't be more wrong. While it has that creative side where you are drawing and you can do anything, it's very much a problem-solving, logical art form. You are figuring out how to get character from point A to point B. You are becoming an expert in physics because you're figuring out how much weight, how much force, how fast an object is moving so that it can screech to a halt, and how much its momentum is going to carry it forward. So your creative art form of animation is actually a very much a logical, problem-solving, physicist, scientific way of looking at it. The other reality that you should be aware of about animation is that it's not all movies. There are the big studios out there. We have Pixar, Disney, DreamWorks, Studio Ghibli, but you can go an entire career without animating in a single movie. I know I have, because other animation jobs that are out there are things like motion design, explainer videos, patient education videos. There's also commercials, there's news, there is a ton of other jobs for animation that isn't strictly movie. I don't want to burst anybody's bubble. If you want to go into movies, you entirely can do it. Just be prepared that it's going to be hard. You need to have connections. You need to be able to network. But the point is that if you want to animate or the movies don't work out for you, there is a lot of other options for animation. And you don't have to strictly go into movies in order to do animation. And one other very hard-hitting reality for me that I learned about when I got my animation job as a motion graphics designer, communication. If you're an animator, you need to be able to communicate ideas. If you're like me, you're probably more introverted and you don't really want to talk to people, but you need to be able to communicate ideas. Even if all you're doing is showing a storyboard through an email, if your client or your coworkers can't understand what's being shown on the storyboard because you didn't put in the dialogue or you didn't put in any notes of what kind of shots you're going to use, or sound effects, or anything that would give them an indication of where in the story you are, then you're going to have to talk them through it. So there is that whole other thing where you can't just be the creative who gets to animate by your desk. You have to also be the person in the room explaining what you mean and bringing the vision to life. Something else that I learned 9 years after I started, there are skills that matter, and these skills aren't the ones that are typically talked about because these aren't drawing related. The first skill I want to bring up is observation. Observation is the biggest skill that an animator can learn because this goes back to, the problem solving and learning physics. If you can observe how things move around you, you're going to get really good at figuring out how to animate movement. But let's take this as an example. A few days ago, I was watching my baby in her stroller and we were bouncing along on the sidewalk. Since she's a baby, she has these massive cheeks. So her cheeks jiggle. I was observing and I'm like, that's very interesting. When the stroller bounces down, the force of gravity is pushing the cheeks upward because they're not a solid. So they're going to move. So whenever I'm animating a baby now who's in the stroller and I need to make the cheeks jiggle, when the stroller bounces down, cheeks are going to move slightly up and out. That's how observation plays a role in animation. But let's move on to skill number 2 now. Skill number 2 that I think is really important for anybody who is starting animation and wants to learn. You really do need to know the basics. I cannot tell you how many times I've felt the need to go back to basics, to pick up more skills, to learn something new. So if you are getting into animation, you need to know those 12 principles of animation back to front. If you don't have a strong foundation of the basics, you're not going to be able to create great animations. You're not going to be able to make the animations you want, and everything's going to flop up, and you'll probably pick a different hobby or career that you want to pursue. I'd like to point out a benefit of getting really good at the basics is that you'll start developing shortcuts for how you can reach whatever effect you want to make quicker and easier than if you skip over the basics and then try to do something new every single time. By the way, if you're interested in a video about animation hacks, something that would make your workflow quicker, can you let me know down in the comments below? And I can make a video about that in the future. Lastly, mindsets, because you will have a mindset shift as you get into animation. This is an art form that you can't expect that you will do it for 1 week, say, wow, I know everything, and then move on to the next hobby. This is the kind of passion project that is going to take months to years to build the skills to have a project that you're really proud of. Because the first ones that you make are going to be really bad. One mindset shift you're going to want to overcome very, very early is you have to get used to sharing your work and getting feedback on it in order to get better. Because if somebody else sees your work and sees where you're lacking, you can address what that mistake is you're making, and then you can make it even better in your future projects. And I get sharing your work is going to be awkward, and I hate to say this, but there's no way around it. The only thing that I can say to help you share your first animation is that if you're worried somebody is going to yell at you and say, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, how could you possibly call yourself an animator? That's not the kind of person you want to show your work to, first of all. But the majority of people aren't going to do that. They're going to say, wow, I can't believe you actually did this. It took how many frames to draw this? That's what people are more likely to say. And if you're nervous, if you have your work on social media, if you send me a link to your social media account, I can take a look at your work and what my thoughts are. My biggest thing is that if you're new to animating, you should have the encouragement to grow, because you are stepping onto this amazing journey of your animation, of your creativeness, and you should be able to grow into it in whichever way you want. That was my tangent on that. So getting back to the mindset shifts that you will experience, you want to be forever curious and a beginner. And I don't mean that you're forever practicing bouncing balls. I mean that you forever want to improve. You forever want to try new ideas. You never want to get too comfortable that this is the only way. You want to use what you're comfortable with and use it as shortcuts and tips and tricks to move yourself further along and get to where you want to be next quicker. And always remember, nothing is ever, ever, ever going to be perfect. The best you can do is learn something from whatever imperfect thing you've done. That's part of the curiosity part of this. And the final mindset shift that I want to share, because if you're creative, you're going to fall into this trap. You are going to want to do it all. But 9 years of animating, what it's taught me is that limits are free. By stopping the thought of I can do anything and everything and animate in any style I want, if you can condense it down and pick a single direction and give yourself limitations, the ability to animate and develop the skills is going to leap forward. You are going to grow so much faster, and you're going to be able to you're just going to be a better animator. If you made it this far in the video, you obviously care a lot about animation, and your curiosity and your need to learn this passion of yours is going to drive your abilities forward very fast, very quickly. All of the creativity and problem solving skills that you pour into your animation, all of it condensing into that one magical moment. And when you press play and you watch your animation play and then you say, I made that move, it is going to be the best feeling you ever experience.